Welcome to the Navigating Dental Insurance Podcast, where we don't take from insurance companies. Here are your hosts, Mr. Jordan Comstock and Mr. Ben Tuine. This podcast is sponsored by BoomCloud Dental Membership Software, www.boomcloudapps.com, and Veritas Dental Resources, www.veritasdentalresources.com. Enjoy the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another exciting podcast episode on Navigating Dental Insurance. I am your co-host, Jordan Comstock, and I got our other co-host, Ben Tuine, on the line. Ben, how you doing, man?
Hey, happy Friday, Jordan. Great. How you doing?
Just happy it's Friday. That's exactly my thoughts right there. I'm just excited to get out and play in the beautiful weather.
I have a garden going, 4,000 square feet in my backyard. I could do more, but I thought, man, that's just a lot of garden space to do manually. I was at Lowe's yesterday, and I needed to get some piping for the irrigation, and I was describing to the guy what I was doing. Like, I was planting, I think, 400 seeds of corn and like 20 tomato plants and 30 pumpkins. You know, and he's like,
oh, man.
I kept going on and on and on, and this guy's like, dude, that's a huge garden. But if anybody knows where I live, there's a 10-acre field right next to us that we're trying to get. It's really expensive, but I don't know if I'd do corn on that. That's really huge. They have alfalfa there now, but
yeah, I've seen that lot. That's a huge lot. That'd be awesome. Put a little farm on there, and you don't never have to go to Walmart.
Yeah, exactly.
or Costco to get your groceries.
That's how it's going to be this year for us. We're excited about it.
It's super cool, dude. Awesome. Well, we have an exciting guest on our show today. His name is Jonathan VanHorn from DentistMetrics. He's the founder of DentistMetrics, and he's also a certified public accountant. He specializes in the field of dentistry and is an asset to the industry from a strategic accounting perspective. Much like a true specialist, he knows dental numbers like the back of his hand. He runs a successful dental podcast called Start Your Dental Practice, so check that out when you have some time here. After you listen to our podcast first, though. And he interviews key industry influencers, to including guys like Dr. Howard Ferran, Ben Tuine, and yours truly, Jordan Comstock. So we'd like to welcome him to our show. Jonathan, how you doing, dude?
Well, you just said that I'm an exciting guest, and so that makes me really happy and warm inside that there's someone else out in this world that thinks that dental CPAs are exciting. So, yeah. So now I'm doing great.
I love dental CPAs. CPA, my opinion, I read that book, Networking with Millionaires and Their Friends. Have you ever heard of that book?
I have. Yeah. I have heard of it.
It's all about using your CPA as the chief consultant for your business. And I totally agree. I have a neighbor that's a CPA, and I use for my bookkeeping and accounting another CPA just down the street from our office. But I affiliate with about 15 different dental CPAs across the country, and I get advice from them on business all the time. They know the numbers.
Dude, it's awesome.
I know. You know,
I just came from lunch, and I was with he used to be a CPA, now he's a CFO for a big company, but that's who I just came from lunch with today, and we had a wonderful time talking about numbers and business stuff. So I liked it. So sorry, I cut you off, Ben.
No. I think CPA should be synonymous with MBA, in my opinion. I don't know what your take is, Jonathan, but
yeah, it's pretty close actually. And to become a CPA, you have to. In most states, that is, you have to have at least 150 hours of college education, with a lot of those being in accounting fields. But for what most people do is they get an undergraduate and then they go get a master's degree, or they take an extra 25 hours or something like that after their bachelor's. And for my degree, it was actually a master's in accountancy with a specialization in taxation. But really, at the end of the day, the only difference in the college that I was at, the only difference in the MBA and the MAC, which is the Master's in Accountancy, was something like 6 hours. Like, it was the only difference in the 2 degrees. So, it's basically the same thing, at least for the college I was in. So, yeah.
That's interesting.
I'm telling you, man, you should do what I do. I read that book, Networking with Millionaires and Their Friends, about 10 years ago. And since I started my business, I over the years, I usually have 2 or 3 CPAs that I hire to do my tax work. And I do that because I want to get the best opinion. I'll file the one that gives me the best savings, and the money that I spend to retain the other CPAs, I actually save money doing that. And so, and then the other thing is I get a lot of great business advice from CPAs that I don't get from a lot of business consultants and coaches that I work with out there. So for those of you that want a piece of advice, CPAs, gosh, you got to lean on them more, in my opinion. Especially ones that specialize in dentistry, you know?
Absolutely, yeah. So that leads us to our first question. How can a dentist best utilize their CPA, Jonathan?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that I think that a lot of business owners don't really understand that their CPA can actually be there for them from a business perspective as well. Because I get it. I used to be a generalist CPA to where I helped everybody with everything. We had clients that were, would have hundreds of dollars a month in revenue. We'd have clients that have hundreds of millions of dollars a month in revenue. So for example, we had oil companies that were clients, and we had hairdressers that were clients.
Yeah, big difference.
And so like in the the scheme of things, and in the way that it used to be, and I jokingly say, in 10, 20, 30 years ago, Jordan, we were talking about this yesterday, I think, about the old times and the long ago. That was how CPAs worked.
Back in the 80s.
Yeah, back in the 80s, like back whenever we were everyone was in driving their cars with their feet.
Yeah.
That was 80s. That was the 80s. That we know.
Yes, exactly. So that was what was on the TV, at least. So that the CPA world of public accounting was the guy that did your taxes, basically, and that was all that we were there for. And the reason was because back then technology wasn't what it is today, and you couldn't really be that involved with your clients' numbers and the actual business side of things. As a CPA, as a profession, we were kind of forced to only help with the compliance because that took up so much time. In today's environment, technology is so much better. As I speak to a founder of a tech company, you can attest to, like, there's so many things that you can automate nowadays. In the accounting world, it's actually a lot easier now to be able to give this type of advice to our clients, to be able to say, hey, we're not spending near as much time doing data prep. So now we can actually have a discussion with you about what we're seeing. And in the generalist world, in the general CPA world, it's still not quite there. That model is available in very specific industries. Like if you're a generalist CPA and you've got, say, 10 construction clients, then that would be a very good, niche for that CPA to be able to specialize in and start learning more about, and start, leveraging their clients' information and learning about their clients' business model to help them with the business stuff. But if you're thinking about it from in terms of most generalist CPAs, there's no way that their head can understand all the different business models that are out there.
Oh, yeah.
To a point where, other than just like in its most elementary understanding of that industry. So being a dental CPA and leveraging technology actually allows the dental CPAs nowadays to really focus more on the business side of things. And the compliance, we take care of that, but that's almost a low level service offering now. So as far as back to the original question, that's kind of a little bit of a history lesson of how CPAs used to be versus what they are now. And there's a lot of people that are CPAs that still work that way, and they do great work, and they do what they're trained to do, which is to do the compliance-based work and taxes and file things like that. And that's great. If you want to use somebody for that, use them for that. But if you utilize someone that's a dental CPA, they're also going to be able to help you with the understanding of your business and the understanding of ways to be able to make sure that your business is running as optimally as it should be, so that you can get to wherever you want to go in your life, from a personal perspective, from a relationship perspective, as well as a financial perspective. Because if you're a business owner, all of those things are impacted by your business. And if your business is not running really, really well, then all of those things are going to be impacted.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying, and I appreciate that, because when I started my business, one of the things that I wanted out of my CPA was the metrics. What should be my payroll? What should be other expenses?
Yeah.
How do I consider myself financially responsible in terms of how I spend as a business? And it was really difficult to build that model because there was no other business like ours that they represented. And so it took a few years for just looking at 3 different CPAs and coming up with a budget for different things in our business, in an effort to be financially responsible. You never want to overspend. But speaking about dental CPAs, so I see the differences between when a doctor uses a general CPA that represents everybody versus a dental CPA. But I wanted to get your take, Jonathan, on what the major differences are and why the benefits of using a dental CPA are far superior than using a general CPA.
Sure. So number one, if I had to think of the reasons, the highest ROIs on the benefits of using a dental CPA versus using a general CPA would be, number one, just the knowledge base that the dental CPA is going to have of the understanding of the business. Like I said beforehand, they're going to actually really be able to help you with, being able to say, hey, we've got clients that have done this in the past and it's been really beneficial to them. They can be a secondary source of validation for any business decisions that you're trying to make. Any type of, I've had a lot of clients ask me information about different vendors and ask me about different marketing companies and different marketing tactics, as well as, what's new in the industry. If I've heard anything about, different types of ways to optimize case acceptance. I mean, how much should I be paying my hygienist to, how much should I be paying for, the waste company that comes in every month? Who should I use for my IT services? Things like that. And I'm just a source of knowledge for my clients that I can look over the 100 practices that we help and say, these are the people that I know our clients have been happy with in the past, and so I'm going to assume that they're going to be best off for you. And so that's one avenue of being able to help. So being a business advisor, helping to understand the numbers that are going on in your practice, because let's face it, a lot of dentists don't spend a whole lot of time learning how to be business owners. I always say that dentists spend about 15,000 hours learning how to become dentist and almost 0 hours learning how to become a business owner.
I agree.
So it's really tough, and we're in an industry that dentists are some of the brightest people out there, the most well-educated and highly intelligent, highly skilled people, and they have one of the toughest business models because of the fact that they are destined to be the biggest producing asset inside of their business.
Yeah.
Right.
And so, like, if you think like the whole E-Myth Revisited type work of totally trying to optimize everything and becoming a manager rather than a doer, that almost isn't possible in a dental practice unless you hit some type of large scale. And so, the dentist from day one is a bit hindered from the fact that they've got to be doing the work every day, but they still have to have the business run around them. And so they typically lean on people that have just been doing it for them in that practice for a long time. So, for example, if you acquire a practice, you're going to lean a lot on the office manager that's been there for 35 years, unless you're very educated on the business side of things. And, that person that's been there for 35 years is probably running it today like they did 35 years ago, which, as
a lot of change.
Yeah, exactly. And so as we described, that is it without that, forward-thinking mentality, a lot of these employees are the ones that are running the business. And that's not because the dentist is unable to, it's because the dentist probably just doesn't have the time to, because they're hopefully back there, making the production rise every day so that they can actually support the bills and pay the bills and everything like that.
Yeah, no, I like that. I know Jordan has a question, and also for the listeners, we are going to get into some opinions from Jonathan on insurance. But before we get there, just a follow-up question to the reasons why a dental CPA is better than a general CPA. I think CPAs in general, there are some general CPAs that I know that take on a big book of business for dental, and they get to know it. They get to know the industry and the numbers. But a local friend of mine, Jordan, you know Glenn Jensen.
Yeah, I know Glenn.
So Glenn put together this study where he compared the numbers of doctors that were using, I'm not going to name the firm here, but certain CPA firms versus general CPA firms. And it was very interesting that small things such as supply costs for somebody that was using a general CPA was 2 times what it should have been. It was like 14-15% versus a dental CPA where it was usually anywhere between 4.5 to 6%. And I asked Glenn what the difference was, and he says it's just a function of, it's exactly what Jonathan said. It's the experience. It's understanding which vendors can help you out the best, which ones you get the best experience from. And going through multiple different clients only in dental, you tend to learn and understand exactly where the numbers need to be. But it was really fascinating. I'll try to get that for you, Jordan, and maybe you can post it on our website. But it showed a huge difference between the profitability numbers, the expense numbers for a practice that was using a general CPA versus one that was using a dental CPA. So anyway, I thought I'd just throw that in there to support what Jonathan was saying in terms of that area of expertise.
Yeah, and to piggyback off of that, a lot of that, if the people that were using the general CPA, they're doing kind of the same thing. They're depending on someone who, if they, for example, someone acquired a practice and they just start using the CPA that was being used beforehand from the old CPA, who is probably, or from the old dentist, who probably is a old CPA assisting them, then they're just going to get the normal reports they get every month, which is a balance sheet, a profit and loss, and potentially a statement of cash flow if you're lucky. But the problem with that is that we actually polled when we had the company going for a little while. It was something like 30 docs of how many of them actually even knew how to read their financial statements, like actually physically, really understood what those financial statements said and meant, how to use them in their business. And 90% of them had no clue how to use their financials to, better their business, or even how to really read them at all. And so, they inherit this old CPA. They get these statements in the mail every month, and then they're paying for them. Maybe a few $100s a month for these statements, or they have like a bookkeeper that's in house that's doing it for them, and it's not even giving them accurate financial statements, so they're not even looking at them.
Is that pretty common?
Oh, it's rampant. And so they get these in and they just throw them away, or they just assume that they're not valuable because they don't know how to read them. So what we've done internally as a company is, talking about the supply issue is, if you're relying on other people's information and you're not out there, educating yourself on what's possible, then you're naturally going to just kind of accept things the way they are. Yeah. So what we actually do every month is whenever we send out our financials, we actually have a 2-page report. We have financials ready for our clients if they need them, but we find that out of 100 clients, we might have one request for financials every 3 or 4 months, just because they don't want them. They have access to them whenever they want to over the cloud, but they rarely even take them. But we actually send out a custom financial report that we create internally, that it shows them what is possible out of their practice, to say, you guys have spent 10% in dental supplies, and we find that the average from your peers, that what they're spending is 7% for whatever it is that your practice is doing. And so by having that simple number there pointed out to them, again, these are highly intelligent people, that outlines the possibility to them. Whereas if they were relying on the other person, they didn't even know that number was out of whack. They just assumed everything was fine because of the fact that they just have been doing the same thing over and over and over again. So, so that's just another part of how we leverage that business experience that we have to be able to communicate with our clients of how to do better. And then obviously, there's the whole taxes aspect, which we save people a bunch of money in taxes. I'm not a big fan of saying that dental CPAs save like tons and tons of money compared to general CPAs on taxes, because I find that to be a little bit not disingenuous. And we definitely save a lot of people a lot of money in taxes when they come to us. However, I think it is disingenuous to say that a generalist CPA can't do a fantastic job on taxes compared to a dental CPA. There's no difference. There's no like special school of training. Yes, are there certain, like maybe 2 or 3 specific expenses that dentists can qualify for? Yes, but general CPAs will know about those as well. The only thing that is different in the two models is typically the dental CPAs know how to ask the questions that will pull out the information that's not shown through the financials. In the generalist CPA world, everything is typically based off of time. And so if you've got 100 different industries that you're serving and you're trying to think about business mileage, you don't want to ask someone who you have a preconceived notion on if they have business miles, if the answer is going to be no, because you're wasting time. And so that becomes kind of a culture in most CPA firms that bill by the hour, is don't ask the questions you don't think there's a yes to. And so they may not know to ask, hey, did you have any, are these business meals 100% deductible versus 50%? Hey, did you have any type of, automobile usage? Did you do any travel? What type of CE events did you go to? Where did, is your family on payroll? Have you used your house for business functions, for staff meetings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? The questions are very important. And so, that is really the only difference in a dental CPA and a general CPA from a tax perspective. Now, whenever you, if you have a fantastic generalist CPA and they're not afraid to ask those questions, then they're going to be, the amount of taxes you pay at the end of the year are probably going to be pretty similar.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Very interesting. Yeah. So my next question for you, Jonathan, is, in my business, we track a lot of numbers and metrics, from profit margins to conversion rates and sales, a lot of different metrics. But in a dental practice, what numbers should a dentist be tracking?
Yeah, so there are a lot.
Let's hear them all.
Yeah, that we could run through. It really depends on what the practice's goals are, is what I'll try and illustrate to people. And the reason is because if you're looking for to raise revenue greatly, if you're looking for more patients, if you're looking, if you're not at capacity, then you have a very different problem than someone who is running around all day long, checking tons of patients that's at capacity. Very different problems those two people have. And so the numbers in which that they're looking at are drastically different, to be honest with you. However, there are definitely ones that are universal that everyone needs to know, that are just kind of core numbers for people to understand in their practices, so that they can be aware of what's going on in their business, so that they know if things are going well or if things are going poorly. And what we typically show, and this is a part of what we give in our financial reports every month, is, you have to understand your profitability. You have to understand how well you're spending your money, and just because, again, I'm not a giant fan of some overhead analysis. I think that some overhead just being way too in the weeds on overhead analysis is just not worth it in dentistry, because dentistry is such a fantastic industry where you can do so well with your time, and the returns on going way in the weeds on, figuring out if we've got, if we spent 2 cents less on that glove on the box of gloves than last year, that's the returns on that are just so infinitesimally small comparatively to, going and doing a crown. So overhead analysis is very important for most GPs. If you're a single doc, you want to be shooting for around 55% overhead, and that's before you pay yourself. So whatever you have, 45% eligibility to take money home. That doesn't include your loans. It doesn't include depreciation or any of those types of things. That's cash flow available for the owner to be able to take home. If you're above that or below that, then you might have some issues. And again, it also depends on what stage of the practice you're in. So if you're a startup practice, it's going to look way different than if you're a very established practice. If you've just gone to a new building, it's going to look way different than if you've been in the same building for a long time, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So the big ones are definitely profitability, which, 55% overhead equals 45% profitability, basically. You've got your overhead analysis, which is looking at that 55% in overhead, where each of those dollars went. And a way of being able to think of overhead is like, if for every dollar that goes out, if you have 55% overhead, that means that for every dollar you receive, you spent 55 cents, basically. And so of that 55 cents of every dollar that came in, where is each of those pennies going to? And you want to make sure that typically the big ones are supplies, labs, and staffing cost. And all in, if you think about those three numbers, supplies, staff, and labs, and obviously you're not including doctor, family, or anything like that in the staff, unless they're doing something in the business that is, a requirement that, if they're an office manager or a true office manager, then they've got to be, you got to consider them in that staff number. But those three numbers together typically end up being somewhere between 37 and 45% of total overhead. And if you remember, I said that's 55% total overhead is what we're shooting for. So that's literally the lion's share in those three numbers. So those are the big three, if you will. A lot of the other stuff kind of just runs with where you are in the country. So, for example, if you're in Little Rock, Arkansas, and you're paying $2,000 a month in rent for a 2,000 square foot space, or you're in California and you're paying $10,000 a month in rent, very, very different. I mean, you are a creature of wherever your habitat is at that point. Like, you can't change that. So there's very limited amount of ability to turn that number on its ear, other than saying, okay, I'm paying $10,000 a month in rent. I want that to be 4% of my total overhead. So that means I've got to get to like $200,000 or something like that, or $220,000 in revenue per month in order to turn that into 4%.
Gotcha.
That's really the only thing you can do as far as like from an overhead analysis standpoint of like doing those types of numbers. So those are the big numbers. Also, cash break-even point. What do we need to? What's our break-even point every month? We like to talk to people about how much money they need to have in their bank account, at the end of each month, to kind of have a goal for like what's the lowest amount of money we can keep in there before we pay ourselves and pull money out. And really, those are the big ones. Understanding where your cash goes, things like that are very important. And again,
so, on understanding where your cash goes, do you help them, like, would you recommend like doing like a percentage-based budget, or how do you help practices with that? I'm kind of curious there.
So I'm much more of a so number one, as far as the numbers-based budget, I have a whole episode on the podcast about budgets, and it's so I could talk literally for an hour about it because that's about how long the episode is. And budgets are a fantastic goal-setting tool, but they're not the best at cost minimization all the time. Now, they're great for trying to figure out how we're going to minimize what our cost is. But at the end of the day, I like to use budgets more as a line of thinking of what we need to get our revenue to. So, for example, if we have staff and we know that there's no way we're going to cut hours or fire anybody just because we don't hit a certain percentage. And believe me, I know a lot of docs out there listening right now are in this boat, that even if we're coming in at 28% a month in staffing costs and we want to be at 25%, we're not just going to cut everybody's salaries by 18%.
Oh, that's a bad thing to do. I heard of a dentist here in actually Utah that did that, and it just pissed all of his employees off.
Yeah, it's mutiny at that point, right?
All right, we're going to cut all you guys' salaries. Good luck supporting your families and being motivated to work for me.
So really the thing to do then is, okay, if we're at 28%, how do we turn this 28% into 25% by raising our revenue? How many more crowns do we have to do? How many more patients do we have to see every day? How many more, how many hours, how many cancellations do we have to eliminate compared to last month to make this happen? And then let's create a culture of we're going to make this happen as a team.
Awesome.
And at that point, you're leading your team, you're making decisions to do things in a strategic manner. And at that point, that is whenever you want to start focusing on people to cut hours or to get rid of, if they're not jumping on ship and following you down the path that you're trying to go to.
Yes, that makes sense.
That is a reason to fire someone, not because we didn't, not because some magic number that I read on the internet, I heard some monotone guy from Arkansas say on a podcast that wasn't doing good. So,
gosh darn it, the interwebs doesn't give you education.
yeah. So yeah. So that's I spoke. I think we spoke for a long time there. I don't even recall exactly what the question.
No, you're good. You addressed it perfectly. I think the numbers that you should be focusing on, and you went over the overhead in those three areas. If you don't mind, I'd like to shift gears here a little bit and talk about dental insurance for a second.
Yeah.
So as a CPA, what's your take on dental insurance?
It's laughable and infuriating, to be honest.
Welcome to the club. Perfect answer.
It's really frustrating to me to see people I really, really care about, which are my clients, just bust their hump every day and have there be like the audacity of some insurance companies to say, you know what, we the shareholder profits just weren't what we thought they were going to be this year, so we're going to cut fees by 3% this year. And it's just like, rather than having a cost of living adjustment upwards, we're going to lower how much we're going to be paying you guys and increasing the amount of our patient premiums. And it's just insanity. And then you have all the issues that spring up. We have clients in Illinois that are getting screwed over by Delta Dental up there.
Oh yeah. Illinois is a bad state.
Hey, it's Illinois, Jordan.
I didn't say Illinois.
the fighting line. I don't even know how I pronounce it. But in Florida, there's some issues as well there that I've heard stuff about, and it's just such a it feels a little bit like the mafia to me, the protection money that you see, and so I'm just I also have a lot of clients that that's just their practices become wrapped up inside of those things. They become dependent on it, and that's very dangerous. One of the core functions or one of the core lessons that the .com era and the last 10 years have taught a lot of businesses is that you can't build your business around someone else's reliance. Like, you can't rely on other businesses because you don't know if tomorrow those businesses aren't going to be there, which is exactly what I was saying about Delta Dental in Illinois. So the problem with that is that if so many people rely on it, then how do you get rid of them? And it's not easy. It's kind of like it's like a Band-Aid a lot of the times. You got to kind of just pull it off, and it doesn't mean you have to do it all at once to pull the whole thing off. You can pull off, do your lowest paying ones first, and from a numbers perspective, that's a really great way to start lowering your overhead. If you start, if you're trying to raise your profitability, there's no better way than to add 30% to your top line revenue. You've got to develop a really great skill around your patients, and you got to have a very good team around you to be able to make something like that happen. But I'm a giant fan of not being dependent on insurance plans.
Amen. Yes.
Yeah. Likewise.
Say no to PPOs. I've got the tattoo on my left eye.
Hey, you got one before I did. Hey, a follow-up question to that. So you work with a lot of dental offices. Do you have any that are fee for service, or at least that are reduced? Okay. What do you see the difference in terms of the numbers, or just curious to know what's the difference between fee for service and a PPO office from your view?
Well, I mean, on average, they're more profitable. They obviously have their own challenges, but I feel like the benefits outweigh the challenges majority of the time. And obviously, there's a lot of dependent on where in the country you're located. But I find it really funny, and I don't want to divulge too much, but there are, we have clients in about 20 states, so we're like all over, right? So we don't have just clients that are sitting next door to each other, but I do have two clients that are, one is they don't know this, but they're about 2 blocks away from each other, and it is like the tale of two doctors. Of one's incredibly dependent on PPOs, and the other one's fee for service. And the one that's PPO, swears up and down they have to be PPO in the area that they're in. and the guy 2 blocks over is for example, they're probably seeing similar number of patients, but the doctor that's doing all the PPOs is doing about $1 million a year in revenue, and the one that's 2 blocks over is doing fee for service, and they're doing 1.5.
Wow.
Very, and honestly, the one that's PPO does a lot of, tries to do extra specialty services as well. The other PPO, the other fee-for-service doctor just doesn't do really anything. He just does basic dentistry.
Wow.
So there's a big difference in it. I mean, there's just a big difference in it. It's difficult to see people in those circumstances, and I'm not saying that's necessarily true all over the country, but as you guys know, somewhere around 40 to 50% of the U.S. Adult population has no dental insurance.
Oh yeah.
And so that's a huge market that is potentially, a fee-for-service type market. That if you have the chops to be able to communicate with people and get them into your practice, and you've got a big audience of people that you can have come into your office, and you can do a really great job of servicing. Yeah, I'm a big fan of it.
Profit margins.
Exactly. So, and that one on that 1.5, the one doctor is probably going to do, they're probably going to make $750,000-$800,000 this year, and the other doctor is going to maybe make $200,000-$300,000. So,
wow.
It's a big difference.
You just inspired me. I just thought of an idea for the podcast. Is we're going to invite fee-for-service doctors and PPO doctors to come on.
I got a handful of them.
Yes. And I want
to
have this discussion because every meeting that I go to, the one question that I ask is who's in network with MetLife and who's out of network with MetLife. And then I turn to the doctors that are out of network with MetLife and I ask them, what's your experience?
Yeah, I've been here when you've done that.
Yeah, 9 times out of the 10 they say it's great. We don't have any problems.
It's amazing.
and the PPO offices are like jealous. Their eyes start to bubble. Like, really? I thought, if we drop this PPO, we'll lose a bunch of patients. Like, no, that's your feeling. I believe that what you believe in will eventually control your own destiny. If you think that you're going to lose a lot of patients if you drop the network, you're going to find a way to lose those patients. They're not going to lose because they're not going to leave because you go out of network. They're going to leave because of how you communicate with them.
Right.
And so
self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I appreciate your perspective on that. A lot of our clients are curious about
awesome.
CPA perspective on PPOs, and I think you hit it on the nail. That it's a function of the numbers. You see less if you're fee for service. Of course, you're just going to eliminate those discounts that you have to give when you're in network. And so,
yeah,
Jonathan,
you also don't have to deal with the insurance companies near as much.
Which takes a lot of time, which costs a lot of money. Right? Time is money.
Yeah. Oh, and the training of the staff to be able to deal with that, and the headaches that the staff has to take in front of that. I feel so bad for so many staff members of dental offices that have to deal with those companies. It'd be like trying to call like AT&T or Comcast every day for just to say, internet's out again. The internet's out again.
Yeah,
it's out again.
The internet's out again.
Yeah, that does suck. I know my mom's been an office manager for I think 30 plus years, and. Mm-hmm. And all my life growing up, I've always heard of the pains of dental insurance. So I definitely feel bad for, all the practices that have to deal with all the crap that insurance companies force them to deal with. So if you're out there listening to this, we care for you.
Yeah, we love you.
We love you.
Hey, Jonathan, so if listeners have any questions for you, I mean, we can direct them to your podcast. What's your podcast website?
Podcast website is startyourdentalpractice.com. So it's a business podcast about how to really do great in being a business owner in this world, this crazy, crazy world of dentistry today.
Yeah, awesome.
And then I'm on your website, DentistMetrics.com, and you can chat with Jonathan there. Any other way people can get a hold of you if they have any questions for you?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm all over the social media platforms. So I have a Twitter. I'm not on there a lot, but if you follow me, I'll probably follow you back. If you tweet me, I'll be there. LinkedIn, Facebook. You can shoot me an email, Jonathan, JONATHAN at DentistMetrics.com. And I am in my email just in gross amount of time during the day. So there has been times people have received replies back and they didn't even realize it until like 2 weeks later, because like they didn't even notice that it was out of their inbox or out of their outbox yet. Like they were like, oh, I didn't even realize that had a reply to it yet. So
that's awesome.
We're in there just a whole lot. So we're very responsive as a company. I also have a phone number, 877-265-2121, and I am extension 1, numero uno.
Yeah,
so
number 1.
Yeah. So I started a business and said, hey, I'm gonna be number 1 somewhere. You know. And my wife's probably listening in right now, just nodding her head. Yes, he's number 1 somewhere. It's not at home.
Not
Not the home, not the house.
Little do they know that it's just extension number 1.
Yeah. Yeah. And if you call our line, you actually get everyone's extensions rather than me. Like, if you know the extension, hit it now, and then if you don't, then sorry, we didn't want to talk to you. So
awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks, Jonathan. We're going to post all of that information in the show notes. As you probably tell your podcast listeners, if they're driving, please don't try to write that down. Everything will be easily available if you go to sayno2ppos.com, click on this episode, and then check the show notes out for Jonathan's contact information. Thanks so much, Jonathan, for being on the show. It's been a real treat having you. And our best advice for people out there is that if you're not using a dental CPA, you need to use one. And contact Jonathan, and he'll help you out. So
awesome.
Thank you so much,
absolutely.
sir. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you guys don't mind, I actually have all the numbers we talked about today. I actually have a report that if any listeners want access to, I'm happy to give that out for free.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Is there so how does that work, Jonathan?
Yeah, they can just go to dentistmetrics.com/thegoal. So that's one word, THEGOAL. I think that's how you spell goal.
Yeah, that was right.
And they go there and they'll be able to just click on a button and put their email in, and I'll email it right over.
Right on.
Perfect.
So go ahead and do that.
Yeah, I'm on that. So dentistmetrics.com/thegoal, and we'll post that on the show notes as well. Anything else, Jonathan, you want to share with our listeners?
No, that's good. You guys go out there and fight the good fight. We're we always try and be a resource to as many people as we possibly can. We know that this is a special industry, and we always like to take care of each other.
Right on.
Awesome.
And like my good friend Jordan says, rock on.
So, rock on, baby.
So thank you again, Jonathan. Appreciate you spending time. We enjoyed the information, and we do know that this is going to be very valuable for the listeners, and we hope that they reach out to you. So we wish you the great rest of the day, great weekend, and hope you have a great summer season, not holiday season, but holiday for the kids.
Yeah, holiday for the kids, yeah.
I don't know if my wife would agree with that.
Yeah, not too much holiday.
We'll see.
All righty.
Awesome.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, Jonathan.
It was fun.